Burnt Toast!
Hello and welcome to the Burnt Toast Show. Joining me again this week, the Pope. The Pope. And you know, it's a Pope Hat night. We're taping this on April 10th, and it's Pope Hat night at the White Sox, at the whatever they call the White Sox Stadium now.
Sure.
Yeah. But it's the Pope Hat because, you know, the Pope is a big White Sox fan, as are you. Well, I don't know. Are you a White Sox fan?
Yeah. I'm the weird anomaly in Chicago. I like them both. So,
Okay. All right. Cool. So you're kind of conflicted when they play each other then.
yes.
Okay. But anyway, I'm talking, of course, about Pope Dave Bell, who is the guy that's not me talking right now. He's the guy that just went like that. He's the one of
But
us
it's
that
not
just went
talking.
like that.
Oh, now I am.
Now you're talking. But I always appreciate you, and I always appreciate when we can do this together. And we're going to do episode 12 right now. Um, and that is brought to you by Premier Chiropractic, 7113 West Jefferson Boulevard in Fort Wayne, Indiana, an affordable walk-in clinic that the proprietor is Dr. John McDonald. Dr. John is a great friend of mine and has done a lot for me, and I know he'll do a lot for you. Premier Chiropractic, 7113 West Jefferson Boulevard in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Thank you, Dr. John. And he really is great. He's really he's really great. I don't know if you've
Well,
seen.
I can tell he does things for you pretty well. So,
Well, yeah, because I'm able to move freely about the cabin, and there's no reason for that whatsoever. But anyway, we're going to go. What we do here is we post a playlist, and this will be playlist number 12. And if you're watching this video, on the left, on the lower left side will be the Burnt Toast Show channel. And you just click on the channel and then go to playlists and go to playlist number 12. Check out the playlist, and then we're talking about what we played in the first part of the playlist. This means the first part of the playlist, apparently. And yeah. And yes, that. Whoa. If I did it with my left, it meant something else. But uh, but you'll click on the playlist number 12. I would recommend checking out all of the videos and then this so you have some reference. And it's just like it used to be when we were on the radio, except that you
hmm
have to do a little more work.
yes.
Other than like turning on the radio. But anyway, we've got a really good show for you. It's a little shorter than usual, but it's a really good show for you tonight. And I hope you enjoy it, or I hope you've enjoyed it so far if you're following the playlist. Har, 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 har. But anyway, we're going to run down starting from the top. And the first thing that we heard was James Gadsden speaking on Doyle Bramhall recording called Mama Can't Help You Now, from the album Rich Man from 2016. And James Gadsden saying, Your mama can't help you no more. And
Yes.
that's the first thing you see in the video as well as James Gadsden. James
A
Gadsden
close
passed.
up of his mouth.
Right. James Gadsden passed last week at the age of 86. He played on so many great records that we play here, and
Mhm.
and great records that we don't play on the Burnt Toast Show. Extremely, I mean, iconic records um, that James Gadsden played on and continued to play well into his 80s. He was born in 1939, and he passed away last week. And I want to make sure that we acknowledge the greatness of James Gadsden. So.
Hit us with a couple of highlights of some of the great songs he played on Todd.
Use Me by Bill Withers.
Okay.
That's the big one. Kissing My Love is another great James Gadsden groove by Bill Withers. Lean on Me, Bill Withers. Anything that's on the Carnegie Hall, Bill Withers concert. Okay, here we go. Got to Be Real by Cheryl Lynn. I Will Survive by who did that? Gloria Gaynor.
Yep.
Yeah, he's the drummer on that. Um, There's a song called Express Yourself by Charles Wright and the 103rd Street
Oh
Brass
yeah.
Band. That's James Gadsden.
hmm
Dyke and the Blazers. Anything by Dyke and the Blazers, that was James Gadsden. Um, I can't remember what their big hit was, but they had a couple of really good ones that just grooved like crazy. James
Yeah,
Gadsden.
yeah, yeah. We played them before.
Mm-hmm. Um,
Mhm.
Terry Reid, Seed of Memory. That's
Oh yeah, yeah.
um, um, there's Herbie Hancock, the Secrets album. That's James Gadsden. Herbie
He
Hancock,
was,
he also Gadsden also played on the Man-Child album. I believe he was on the original Hang Up Your Hang-Ups, but I'm not absolutely sure on that. But
well, he was on a lot of stuff, a lot of recordings,
he was.
and
He
all pretty
was.
amazing.
And just an incredibly soulful drummer, one of the great R&B drummers of all time. And he continued to play. He's on there. There's an Amos Lee album that he sings and plays on from a few
Mm.
years back. There's a song on there called Jesus that he sings on. Do you remember that album? It had a crow on the front of it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, he was on that. He continued to play, and this song, "Mama Can't Help You," was built around James Gadsden's legendary 16th note groove. He had that going on like crazy. Um,
Hmm.
and Doyle Bramhall actually had the idea of James Gadsden playing on a song before he actually wrote the song. He actually wrote the
Oh,
song
wow.
around the idea of James Gadsden being able to play on it. So as I said, this is Mama Can't Help You from Rich Man from 2016. It was Bramhall's first album in 15 years for various reasons. And that's Doyle Bramhall on the vocals and the acoustic and electric guitar. I'll bring this over here. Shine Reardon on the organ, Woody Jackson and Chris Bruce on the guitars, Tim LaFave on the bass, who's played with a little bit of everybody, James Gadsden on the drums, and Davey Chegwidden on the percussion. Chegwidden got it the first try. Ha ha ha. After that, we heard a band that I was not that familiar with, but I know they've been around for a while, a band from Austin called White Denim. And I ran a live video called Ruby from Live at Bass Street. Their new album is called 13. I like the studio recording of this, but I like this version more while the guy is actually barbecuing while he's doing the lead vocal. That's a skill.
Yeah,
But this
you
is
don't
an
see that often.
no, Austin-based band, influenced by, get this, dub, psychedelic rock, punk, progressive rock, soul, jazz, and experimental music. So I
And
think
Kenny G.
and
No.
Kenny G and speed metal, Christian rock, and banjo music. Probably not. They are led by James Petralli on the lead vocals, Steve Terabecki on the bass, Matt Young. It says Young right on his bass drum on in the video on the drums, so you don't forget who he is.
That's
Cal
right.
Clemens on the guitar. There is another guitar player that I don't know who that is, and Michael Hunter on the keyboards. After that, we heard something new from the Black Crowes. I don't know if you've noticed this, dude, but um, Chris Robinson seems to be everywhere. Like he went on Jimmy Kimmel a couple of weeks ago doing an Otis Redding song, the Fa Fa song,
Oh,
without
yeah.
the Black Crows. Without the Black Crows, it was like some other band, and he had Rachel Price from Lake Street Dive on background vocals.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. I saw it, but it was and I think that that's going to be a step that he takes in some future form is the soul singer. Paul Rogers did that. Um,
Hmm.
but I think that that's coming up for Chris. I could be way off, but he's doing all these interviews. I'm seeing him all over the place on social media and on YouTube, and he still seems to be good and crazy and drug addled, and that's the way we like our Chris Robinson. That's a joke, but anyway. um, They have a new album out called Pound of Feathers, and that was a track called High and Lonesome, and it features a violinist who they did not credit on the album. So must have really, guys, really now. But anyway,
Made an impression.
it's their 10th LP, which is not really impressive since they've been doing LPs since 1990. The first one was Shake Your Money Maker back in
Hmm.
1990, and that's a while back. And you should put
Yeah.
out more content than that. The issue is that they didn't get along for a very long period of time, and
Hmm.
are Chris and Rich Robinson, the two brothers that run the band and or lead the band, and so they spent long periods of time apart from each other and doing other things. Um,
That family will do that.
yes. And now they're doing it again. They're back, and they're touring this summer.
Yep.
Um, and we'll see what happens there. They sound great right now. They really sound
Hmm.
great. Chris Robinson on the vocals, Rich Robinson on the guitars and the bass, Cully Symington on the drums, and Eric Deutsch, who we know from Charlie Hunter's trio from about 15 years ago on the
Hmm.
keyboards. The background vocalists are Mackenzie Adams and Leslie Grant. They seem to be on most of the songs, so that's pretty cool. The Black Crowes' new album, Pound of Feathers. We're going down
Great
the
album.
playlist. So this is number four. What do you think of the Black Crowes album?
I think it's great. I really liked it a lot.
I,
I think they're I liked it better than I liked the last one. I felt the last one was good. This one I felt like it was a little more interesting. It got that felt more like the old Black Crows to me.
yeah, I was talking to a former student of mine who lives in Nashville now and tours with different artists, and he just flat out said rock and roll is dead. It's just dead. And I think that the Black Crowes would disagree with that at this time.
I would
I
too.
think they are definitely carrying a torch for all sorts of rock and roll music.
I think rock and roll might be dead to uh the radio listener, but I don't think the music itself is dead.
Yeah, the radio, yeah. I can dig that. I can dig
Yeah.
that. And we're
Hmm.
not on the radio, so we can say whatever the fuck we want. Yeah. After that, we heard another really great band, Ola Bell. That was a live. This was originally on their first album, and
Hmm.
this was a live recording from the City Winery in New York City in December 20th, 2018. They did the old blues song "Soul of a Man," and it featured Amy Helm, who we will bring up again later. Amy Helm,
Hmm.
keep that in mind. Amy Helm on the vocals, Fiona McBain on the vocals and guitar, Brian Isaacs on the bass, the slide bass. He does a slide bass thing. Tony Leone on the drums, who's now with, well, he's still with Ola Bell, but he's now with Little Feat as well. He was also with Chris Robinson Brotherhood for a good long time.
Okay.
Uh, Glenn Pachi on the keyboards. I'm sure I'm butchering that. And they were joined by David Mansfield on guitar. Ola Bell. After that, we played Robert Plant. And you found
Yes.
this one, so I'm going to let you have this one. Talk to me
Yeah,
about Robert
it
Plant.
was on this was from the Colbert or the Late Show, and
He's gone pretty soon,
this
right?
May. I think in May he's gone.
Okay.
I think I'm not sure the
And
exact date,
and
but I think
I heard that they're replacing him with Byron Allen, who is paying to be on television.
well,
Is that accurate?
it's even kind of worse than that. There's that show is already on the air. It aired after the Late Show, and then after midnight, it was on. It was like a 1 o'clock in the morning show that they recorded, and then it got moved all the way up to that time slot because CBS doesn't want to pay for anything in that time slot apparently. So they're just throwing that on.
Wow, man.
So
You
it's
remember when there was a big deal about when Johnny Carson left, and there was this
yeah.
there was a big competition and a lot of hurt feelings and all that stuff.
Hmm.
This just seems to be like, it's like you ever seen the movie uh what's the Weird Al movie? UHF or
VHF.
VHF? Remember when they put Michael Richards as Stanley Stadowski as the host of a TV show? He was the janitor. It's kind of like that.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Pretty
They've
much.
taken the
Yeah.
janitor and given him who's available? Who has a pulse?
Yeah. Exactly.
But anyway,
And
this was
and
on. Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say for all the you young listeners out there, Johnny Carson preceded Jimmy Fallon by lots of years.
Many, many
And
years. Many
yes.
years. And many times he and his cohort, Ed McMahon, were just absolutely hammered drunk on,
Yeah, oh yeah.
on their
Hmm.
shows. And you can
Yeah.
never imagine anything like that now. But those boys, I mean, and guests would come on and they were hammered drunk as well. And usually I
Yeah.
think
And they were smoking on the air, which
yeah,
you
oh
don't
yeah,
see
smoking
anymore.
cigarettes. There was a thing where I believe it was Dean Martin put his cigarette out in Don Rickles' drink or something like that. No, it wasn't.
Something like that. Yeah.
It was never doesn't matter. He did that with somebody. It'll come to me. It'll
But
come to me.
anyhow, back to the song.
Yes,
The
Robert Plant. It was a song that we
Robert
know.
Plant. This was this was not played on the air. They sometimes would do a second song that they would play online, and he did this song, and it was just played online. And I caught it, and I was blown away. Plant sounds fantastic on the song.
Yeah. And he's like
I don't,
77, I think, something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I've listened to all of his solo albums since then, and I just didn't think he had that kind of range anymore. I thought he was gonna hit the, because he most of his singing is kind of uh quiet and kind of um it doesn't really have he doesn't push his voice very much. So when he did in this song, well, kind of matching the old ramble on, I was
Yeah.
kind of surprised, and he sounded fantastic during the song, and the band sounded really good. I can't remember the guitarist's name, but he was the one that was sitting towards the end. He
Yeah.
was phenomenal.
It's not
Just
Jimmy Page.
not Jimmy Page.
Not Jimmy
Looks a
Page.
little like Jimmy Page, but wasn't Jimmy
Right,
Page.
right, right. And that's from Led Zeppelin 2 originally,
Yeah.
which was a terrific album.
And also, he doesn't, when he goes out live, he doesn't perform Zeppelin songs very rarely, if ever, does he? So this was kind of a rare treat for him to go back to, perform an old Zeppelin song.
What do you think of that?
What do I think of what the fact that he
Of
won't do?
artists who used to be with giant bands who don't do any songs by the giant bands.
I depending on what they've put out since then, I'm okay with it. But if they haven't put out anything really interesting and they're asking people to pay for them, it's like maybe they should do like one or two of the old ones. I mean, I know he's never going to do Stairway to Heaven. He can't stand that song now. So
You
that's
can't stand Stairway to Heaven?
no, 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 no.
He
Plant
can't.
can't. Yeah,
Oh
he can't
man.
stand Stairway to Heaven.
Dude, just the drums. Well,
Yeah.
Stairway
Oh,
to Heaven,
sure, sure, sure,
geez.
sure.
And the guitar solo, you
But
know. He's
he's
got a different vantage point, but I
yeah.
actually think that that's a really much maligned song that's actually a masterpiece.
Oh, I think it's great too. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. What I'm saying is that he thinks the lyrics are ridiculous and he just doesn't want to have
The
anything to do
lyrics
with
are
it anymore.
the lyrics are ridiculous. Is there a
Of course,
bustle in
of
your
course, and
hedgerow?
my favorite moment in all of Led Zeppelin history, infamous moment, all of Led Zeppelin history is him doing uh Stairway to Heaven on the Song Remains the
Oh
Same
yeah,
album.
does anyone
When he gets
remember laughter?
when he gets to that moment, goes, "Does anybody remember laughter?" And it's
Yeah,
like, oh my God,
which was
you're a Spinal Tap, man.
quoted in Almost Famous.
Yes,
And
yes.
interestingly enough, Almost Famous is set like 3 years before that album came out.
Yes.
Oops.
Oops.
Oops. But yeah, I'm glad that we were. I don't believe that we have played any solo material from Robert Plant, even on the
Hmm.
radio or on the YouTube show. I don't believe we
Right.
have. We played some Led Zeppelin because I know this because I got taken down from YouTube, the Burnt Toe Show Facebook site. Remember we had that.
Oh yeah, I
I
forgot
wasn't
about
allowed
that.
to
Yeah.
post because I posted the cover to Houses of the Holy, which has naked children climbing a mountain on it
Yes.
and they decided that it was child porn and that I was going to have to sit a week or so out. And I'm like, dude, it's a 50-year-old album cover.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Oops.
moving right along, Flea
Yeah.
has a new album out that he recorded with jazz musicians. And I think to me, it sort of reminds me of when Sting worked with jazz musicians with the
Hmm.
Dream of the Blue Turtles album in 1985. Flea's album is called Honora, and that was with special guest Nick Cave, who was, I know him best. I mean, you're probably more familiar with Nick Cave than I am, but I know
Yeah.
him best from the film Wings of Desire. He's in the film Wings of Desire, which is one of my
Hmm.
favorite films, the Wim Wenders film about angels in Berlin that came out in,
Hmm.
I believe, 1988 or 89, something like that.
I
And
think 88. I
I
think
saw
88.
and Wim Wenders, if you're not familiar with Wim Wenders, he has done a lot of really great films, including Paris, Texas, which is also one of
Oh yeah.
all time.
One of the great all-time films.
But I guess that Flea and Nick Cave kind of knew each other, and Nick Cave put this vocal down after everything else was done,
Hmm.
and wasn't present in the studio at all. He recorded it at his home studio or some studio where he was at. Um,
Hmm.
but it doesn't sound like that. But anyway, what's interesting is that Flea does not play bass on this song. Someone that we're very familiar with, Anna Butters, the Australian acoustic bass player, plays bass on this. And Flea
Hmm.
plays trumpet. Flea plays the trumpet solo. Nick Cave on the vocals, Flea on the trumpet, Anna Butters on the acoustic bass, DeAnthony Parks on the drums, Jeff Parker, who we know from playing with Michelle Indegliocello and Micaiah McCraven on the guitar,
Hmm.
and Mauro Rafosco on the percussion. And it was their version of Jimmy Webb's song Wichita Lineman. We played some Jimmy Webb on our singer-songwriter show. This is a very different
Hmm.
take. This, I mean, it's still the same quality, but it's a very different take on because there have been a lot of artists who've done this song. It seems to me that I know Cassandra Wilson has done this song, and
Hmm.
REM, I want to say, on some sort of compilation.
Yeah, I think they did. I'm trying to think of the. There's
The
a couple
original
more
is
I can
Glenn
think of.
Campbell,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
but it's a beautiful, one of the
Oh,
great
yeah.
songs of all time. And I guess Flea and Nick Cave were both really big fans of this song, which you don't really think of the Red Hot Chili Peppers and then go, yeah, man, they should do Wichita Lineman.
Well, I saw an interview with Flea recently, and he was talking about now I'm gonna draw a blank on the name, but like every night before he goes to bed, he listens to um a jazz album. In this case, he said a Miles Davis album, and I can't remember which one, but he says every night before he goes to bed, he listens to a jazz album.
Really?
Yeah, and he's apparently a big jazz fan. So,
Yeah, I remember, and I'm going to dog him for a second here. Okay. I
mhm.
remember reading in Rolling Stone um, when they were, when they were just coming up. I think it was their first cover. It would have probably been what was the Sex Magic album? What was that called?
Blood Sugar Sex Magic.
Sugar Sex Magic. I believe that they were on the
Yeah.
cover of the Rolling Stone after that, and that meant something at that time. I don't, but the I remember them asking him. He said, "Well, I grew up listening to jazz. I was really into jazz. I think his father was a jazz musician, Flea's father." And they said, "Well, who are your favorite musical artists? Who are your favorite jazz artists?" And he said, "Miles Davis and Ahmad Rashad." And Ahmad Rashad is not a musician. I believe he meant Ahmad Jamal, but
Yeah,
Ahmad Rashad is a sports figure who
right.
married Felicia Rashad, who was on the Cosby Show.
Well, I think that, every once in a while you can a slip of the tongue, and magazines love to exploit that.
Drugs are bad, buddy. Drugs are bad.
Drugs are a hell of a thing.
Yeah, drugs are a hell of a thing. After Flea with Nick Cave, we heard something new from Steve Okonski's group called Okonski. It's a jazz trio, but they were joined by Cochimea Gastelum, who I interviewed on the radio years back. This is a new single by Okonski called Flying. They've got an upcoming album, but that was Cochimea Gastelum. I said it there, got it right the second time on the saxophone. Steve Okonski on the piano. Really good stuff from that trio, the Okonski trio. Moving further down the list, we've got something new from Jordan Rakai and Nubia Garcia. Nubia Garcia, a London-based alto saxophonist, and Jordan Rakai from New Zealand. I always
Mm,
miss that, don't I? Don't I? I always
yes,
miss
you
it, but
do.
I didn't.
Yes, you
Uh,
do.
New Zealand-based keyboard player and vocalist. There's a new album of compilations or a new EP of compilations called Between Us. And I believe it was just the two of them and a drummer named Sam Jones. And that was a track called Monsters, which there
All
are some
right.
out there. There are some out there right now.
I don't know whom you could be referring
Neither do I.
to.
Did I just say that out loud?
Yeah.
After that, we heard
This is
from a
all inner voice, Todd. This is all inner voice.
apparently I don't have a filter or an inner voice anymore. Turned 62 and shit just fell off. But anyway, Genevieve
I could make
Artat,
a joke there, but I'm not going
please don't. Please don't. It could be misconstrued.
to.
Um, Genevieve Artati is half of a duo called Knower, Knower,
Hmm.
and they've done a number of albums. This is I want to say this is her third or fourth solo album, but I'm not sure. It's called Forever Forever. It came out in 2023. And we played a
Hmm.
track, a very prog track called Visionary. Genevieve Artadi on the vocals, Louis Cole, who is the other half of Knower, on the drums, Pedro Martin, a great Brazilian guitarist, on the guitar, and the blazing guitar solo that was reminiscent of maybe Alan Holdsworth.
Hmm.
Jacob Mann and Chiquita Magic on the keyboards. Chiquita Magic. I was going to call myself Chiquita Magic when I started off as a recording artist, and I'm
You
glad I
just don't
didn't.
look like a Chiquita, though.
Oh,
I told you that
do,
at the
do I
time.
look anything like I did in the 90s when I started my recording career?
But I told you then you didn't look like a Chiquita. I talked you out of
And I remember that. I remember that. And then you hit me
it.
with a hammer. Yes,
Well, that was just par for the course.
that's right, because it was Tuesday. And I think it was Sam Wilkes on the bass, but I'm not absolutely sure. So there you go. So
All right.
after that, we heard Wendy and Lisa from their self-titled 1987 album with a track called Anything But You. They had just left Prince's employ. They were with The Revolution. You remember The
Hmm.
Revolution.
Oh, absolutely.
And they were prominently featured in Purple Rain. As a matter of fact, they co-wrote the song Purple Rain.
Hmm.
Lisa Coleman had been with Prince for a very long time, and Wendy Melvoin replaced Des Dickerson in Prince's band when Des left to form his own group, the Modernaires, which are in the Purple Rain film for about 20 seconds.
Hmm.
Remember that? But
Yep.
anyway, um,
And then he went solo after that. He did at least one solo up after that
Des
after this.
Dickerson,
Yeah.
boy, it really took off too, didn't it?
Yo, man, he was huge. Don't you remember that Des Dickerson craze?
The Des Dickerson craze of the late 80s. No. Anyway, um, this is kind of a family affair on this one. Anything But You. The thing I like best about this that I had to look up was who was playing the bass, and it was Wendy. Wendy Melvoin played the fretless bass on this. Really cool fretless bass part on this. Wendy Melvoin on vocals, all the guitars, the fretless bass, and the percussion. Lisa Coleman on vocals, keyboards, and percussion. Jonathan Melvoin on percussion. Jonathan Melvoin, the brother of Wendy Melvoin. And later he played keyboards with Smashing Pumpkins and died of a drug overdose out on the road. It was very
Mm,
controversial. You remember that,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And then Susanna Melvoin on the background vocals, again, the sister of Wendy Melvoin. She was also the lead singer with The Family, the group that
Hmm.
Prince put together, and the originators. Well, let's just say they did the original version of the
Right.
Sinead O'Connor song that Prince wrote called Nothing Compares to You. They did it before
Hmm.
Sinead O'Connor did. She was also married to Doyle Bramhall II, who we played earlier in the set for a while, and they had a couple of children
All right.
who are older now. They're adult type children now. But
Well,
anyway,
yes, every day they would be older.
yeah, I know, man. I my child turned older this week, but
Yes.
um, Gary Coleman on percussion. Gary Coleman is Lisa Coleman's dad, and he played percussion. He was one of the Wrecking Crew, the second edition of the Wrecking Crew from like the 70s. He played percussion with, I know I've got him on a couple of Loggins and Messina records. He also played on a bunch of other records, but he was one of he plays congas on this, and he was a great percussionist in Los Angeles in the 1970s and 80s. And Carla Azure on the drums. Anything But You by Wendy and Lisa. Once again, we're running down the playlist for episode 12, which is what this is, and we we've arrived at Frank Zappa. And
Mm.
now this was not originally on Zappa in New York. Zappa in New York was recorded in December of 1976, around the time that Zappa did his first appearance I think it was his first appearance on Saturday Night Live
Yeah.
with this band doing this song. And it was released in March of 1978, but this song was not on it. This is Peaches and Regalia, which was originally on the album Hot Rats.
Hmm.
Um, Really nice version of it with a drum solo at the end from Terry Bozzio, who was animated. He was very animated, I believe, on the drums. He was,
Oh, yes.
there's a movie called Baby Snakes where he just seems to be throwing himself onto the drums for the entire thing. Now, this is was it the 50th anniversary?
I
Um,
believe so. Yeah.
so they repackaged it and put it back out with like two more albums of extra songs.
Yep, it was a lot of stuff. It was what the reissue package came in a cardboard box, and inside was a manhole cover with the CDs inside of it.
Yeah, he was really fighting with Warner Brothers at that time. He was in a
Oh
big
yeah.
fight with Warner Brothers, and he got real fierce with them. And
Hmm.
eventually he moved on to his own label that was distributed through Polygram called Zappa Records. That was the next studio album that was not on Warner Brothers was on Zappa, and I believe that was Shake Your Booty in
Hmm.
78 or 79.
I
And
think so. Yeah.
then later it was Barking Pumpkin Records. Uh,
Hmm.
and that was the one through all the 80s. He did it himself. He did it all himself.
Yeah.
Well,
And
he,
actually, if you would have called the number for Barking Pumpkin back in the day, you
which
might
I
have
did.
gotten Gail.
Yeah, I
Uh,
did. I did. I've got that T-shirt. Remember the Barking Pumpkin T-shirt?
yeah, and
And I,
didn't you talk to Gail
yeah, man,
or
dig this, man. This is my Frank Zappa, Gail Zappa story. I
yeah,
called up to order a T-shirt because it was all over the phone because there was no internet. This was like
right.
1991, and
Hmm.
I called up and she answers the phone and she says, "Barking Pumpkin, this is Gail." And I said, "Like Gail Zappa?" And she said, "What the fuck do you want?" And so I ordered the T-shirt and I hung up.
Because
Gave me my
probably she
address.
got that with every order.
Yeah, man, I had not really thought about that, but I had never really thought about the fact that Gail would answer the phone. And
Yeah,
she was pretty pragmatic in her approach, I think,
yeah,
overall, not just with me, but
yeah.
I was just some dickhead on the phone that, probably
Which is
tell
what I
me
call you as
tell
well.
me about Frank. Tell me about Frank. What's Frank really like? But anyway, this is Peaches getting back to our original point. Peaches and Regalia from the Palladium in New York in December of 1976. There was they had a big horn section, but they're not included on this song. But Frank Zappa on the guitar, Ray White on the rhythm guitar, Eddie Jobson, who later formed the band UK, on the keyboards and the violin, Terry Bozzio on the drums, Patrick O'Hearn on the bass, and Ruth Underwood on the percussion, vibes, and marimba. There you go.
All
Frank
right.
Zappa. After that, unless do you have your list right there? I'm making sure that I'm getting everything right because I'm sort of got this in six different places. Do
I
you
don't
have your
have it in
set
front
list?
of me, but I can get it really quick
You
here.
do
Hold
that?
on one
If you do
second.
that, you're pretty fast.
Please, please
I th
hold. Please
I
hold.
think the Beatles are next. I'm pretty sure that the Beatles are next.
Um, yeah, the Beatles are next. I got a
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah, I got a feeling, which was recorded in their last concert appearance, which was on the roof of Apple Records on January 30th, 1969. An outdoor gig in January. That's what every musician wants. And I believe
Yeah,
that the story is that George really didn't want to do that.
yeah.
So, but he got bullied into it by Paul, I would assume. But that was I've Got a Feeling, which was a combination of two songs. Um, I've Got a Feeling by Paul McCartney and Everybody Had a Good Year by John Lennon, both of which are in there. They just sort of shoved them together. And that was
Hmm.
the Let It Be album, which you and I have discussed, um, utter disgust. But you
Utter
and I
discuss this.
Yes, you and I have discussed the fact that I think that this was actually the last album to be released, but not recorded. This was
No,
the
I think you're
they,
saying that backwards. It was
they
recorded but
recorded
not
Abbey
released.
Road no, they recorded Abbey Road after this, but this came out after Abbey Road.
I think I don't know. I think they had recorded the other, but it got released. Um, I think they recorded this and then Abbey Road, but then I'm
Because
not
this
sure
was a
that the
movie,
order.
and this was supposed to be called Get Back.
Yeah, and then
When
it was held
John
off because they wanted to release it with the movie.
Right. And then John decided to bring in Phil Spector, who put strings and horns on everything, the big
Hmm.
wall of sound. And Paul was really not into that.
Right.
Um, and so, but anyway, this is from their rooftop concert. And it's Paul McCartney on the bass and the vocals, John Lennon on the rhythm guitar and vocals, George Harrison on the lead guitar and background vocals, Ringo Starr on the drums, and special guest Billy Preston, often referred to as the fifth Beatle, on the keyboards because he was everywhere with them on those last couple albums.
Hmm.
He was very, very present on those albums, and he really
Yes.
added a lot.
And
I mean, he,
if you watch that documentary, about the making of this, it's on Apple TV, I think.
uh,
Um, or no, Disney. It's on Disney. It's like you can see that they're visibly frustrated with what was going on. And then Billy Preston walked into the room and started playing keyboard, and the
yeah,
mood completely changed,
yeah, they were
completely
all
and
huge
utterly
Billy
changed.
Preston fans. Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
it's cool. Yeah. So, um, after that, we played the last song that we played in this set was Steely Dan from well, it's on the Steely Dan Gold album, I believe, but it was
Hmm. And it
originally the
was a,
B-side of Hey 19, and
yep.
it was recorded live at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium in July of 1974, the last date that they played live for 19 years. And
Hmm.
it was a very rambunctious version of Bodhisattva. Now, the first thing we need to talk about, there's lots to unpack here, okay? Um,
Hmm.
the first thing we need to talk about is Jerome Antonin. Jerome Antonin was their bus driver, who they found
Hmm.
very amusing, especially Donald and Walter. And this might not be the coolest thing to like have kind of an extremely impaired person come out and really screw up his way through the
The
introduction.
introduction, yeah.
And then sort of you can hear them laughing at him. You can hear,
I laughing at him or laughing with him, it's hard to say from this vantage point, but he was drunk and they kind of threw him out there, so maybe
yeah,
at
yeah, yeah. And he
him.
apparently did not know that Steely Dan was the name of the band. He thought that Steely Dan was Donald Fagen. So there's that. So,
Right.
and Mr. Whatever is here tonight. And
Yeah.
there's that
Mr.
introduction.
Steely Dan and whatever.
And he goes on and on and on. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that, and they kept that. That was on the single. Actually really liked that side of the single better than Hey 19 when it came out in November of 1988. But that was Donald Fagen on the vocals and the keyboards, Walter Becker on the bass and background vocals, Michael McDonald on the keyboards and vocals, Royce Jones on percussion and vocals. Royce Jones was later with Ambrosia. Jim
Hmm.
Hodder and Jeff Porcaro on the drums. Jeff Porcaro later uh, played on everyone's albums in the 1970s. He was part of that
Yeah.
second generation of the Wrecking Crew and also formed the band Toto later.
Yep.
And then Denny Diaz and Jeff Skunk Baxter on the guitars, and some just blazing playing on that. Now,
And Diaz was with them kind of from the beginning. Am
um,
I? Am I?
Denny Diaz put an ad in the Village Voice in New York that said, I need a keyboard player and a bass player for a band, for a creative, freaky band or something like that. I don't know what it was. And they came and answered the ad and then basically took over the band. And it later became Steely Dan.
Well,
So
Diaz didn't seem to mind apparently.
no, 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 no. He thought they were really great, and he was the one that they kept. I believe he played on all of the albums, all of the first albums from 72 to 80. I don't think he was on Gaucho, but he was on everything up to Gaucho, even when they dismissed the rest of the band and concentrated strictly on recording. Because this was their last live gig for a very long time, and that was in July of
Hmm.
74. That means that after that they would have done Katie Lied and Royal Scam and Asia and
Or
Gaucho,
else game.
right?
Hmm.
And Denny Diaz was on all those, and Jim Hodder was on none of them, and Jeff Skunk Baxter was on none of them, and
Hmm.
and so they kind of kept Denny around. I think they liked Denny.
Yeah. Yeah.
He made it all happen initially. Um,
Hmm.
so couple of things to talk about here. Um,
Hmm.
First off, I've heard that Bodhisattva is the only song credited to Walter Becker and Donald Fagen that Walter Becker actually had nothing to do with. That Donald Fagen wrote that
Okay.
entire song. And as we know, Steely Dan got back together really in 1992 for the New York Rock and Soul Review. Walter Becker joined the New York Rock and Soul Review, which was Donald Fagen, and actually that was put together by Libby Titus, Donald Fagen's wife, who was married to Levon Helm for a long time. And there we have the Amy Helm connection that I warned you about. Um,
Yes.
Amy Helm is the daughter of Levon Helm and Libby Titus, and therefore Donald Fagen became Amy Helm's stepfather. Now, this is important for later, okay? And it is. they played together starting in 1993. Did you see the 93 tour with Peter Erskine and Warren Bernhardt and Drew Zing? Did you see that tour?
Hmm.
I did too.
Yes.
And I was blown away.
Yeah, I think we saw it together.
That's very possible. And I was just absolutely stunned that the fact that we were seeing Steely Dan live. It was just
Yeah.
astounding. And they toured, I believe that Walter passed, I want to say in 2017 from esophageal cancer. Um,
Something like
and
that. Yeah.
mhm. And Donald decided to go on and continue touring. Uh,
Hmm.
Donald wanted to record another Steely Dan album throughout the year. Their last one was
Everything must
Everything
go.
Must Go. What year was that? Do you remember?
I can tell
I
you.
want to say
Just
it
a
was like
second.
2003 or 2004. And they both did
Uh,
a couple of solo albums. Walter did 11 tracks of Whack and Circus Money. And Donald did well,
2003.
okay, yeah, yeah. After that,
Mm.
I think that Donald did Morph the Cat and
Sunken condos.
Sunken Condos. I believe those were the two
Hmm.
that he did.
Hmm.
And they came back out after COVID and were touring pretty regularly. And then
Hmm.
they did some gigs opening for the Eagles, which at first I found confusing why Steely Dan
Hmm.
would be opening for the Eagles. And then I realized that they have the same manager, Irving Azoff.
Hmm.
Um, and Donald, there's a book called Imminent Hipsters that Donald wrote some years back. And mostly it's
Hmm.
just him complaining about hotel rooms when he's out on the road. The
Yeah.
second part of it.
That really is pretty much the
Yeah,
basis of the book.
yeah, yeah. How he slept on his laptop, and he's mad, but that's true. But
Yeah.
um, so he was never really that fond of touring. He didn't like touring with the Dukes of September that he did a while back with Michael McDonald and Boz Scaggs. That's a great show,
Hmm.
but he couldn't get as good a hotel as Steely Dan because they weren't
Right.
worth the money. I'm sure that he could have gone to a different hotel, but so um Tony Leone, we know Tony Leone. I interviewed
Hmm.
him a couple of weeks, well, in January of this year for this very YouTube show. And it's a really good interview, and he's a really great guy. And he plays with Ola Bell with Amy Helm. And Amy Helm has decided that since the passing of Levon Helm, she's decided to carry on um, with the Helm family midnight rambles that he used to do
Hmm.
in Woodstock, New York, which is where
Right.
Donald also lives. I assume that they lived in Woodstock to be close, that was where the family was, that's where Libby was. And Libby got really sick, and Donald started canceling gigs for Steely Dan in March of 2024. That was the last time that yeah, March of 2024. That was the last time that Steely
Hmm.
Dan played, was March of 2024, which seems like a really long time ago. Um,
Hmm.
and Amy Helm, Tony posted some things on Instagram on the stories, and it's them playing different songs at their ramble, and Donald Fagen is playing keyboards with them. And
Okay.
like I called Tony up and I said, dude, Donald Fagen is playing keyboards with you? And he said, yeah, man. Amy's trying to get him to get him out and do it stuff because Libby passed away. Libby Titus, his wife, passed away. And
Hmm.
at that point, he didn't really book any more Steely Dan shows. And this week, or maybe a couple weeks ago, Amy sort of announced on Instagram that Donald is enjoying his retirement and is just going to do the midnight rambles for right now. That may
Hmm.
change, but he is 78. Um, so
Yeah.
is that right? I think, yeah, he's 78. And we know of bands where there's people who are 78 in them or older. And on the one hand, we saw David Crosby when he was 79.
Hmm.
He absolutely killed. He's 78 or
He was
70.
amazing.
Yeah. However,
Absolutely amazing.
um, you have people like Carlos Santana is 79 this year. He's had a couple of
Hmm.
heart attacks. He sits in a chair, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure that that's the same. So,
Right.
but apparently Steely Dan is no more. Apparently Steely Dan
Yeah.
Donald Fagen has retired from Steely Dan. And on the one hand, you're thinking, well, yeah, I guess, okay, all right. And on the other hand, it's like,
Yeah.
wow, I don't get to see Steely Dan anymore. There's not going
Right.
to be any more Steely Dan. And you
Yeah.
told me that he's working on an album.
Yes. With his
Where did you hear this? And was this tied in with what I'm talking about?
yes, because well, I saw an article that said, enjoying his retirement, and so I clicked on that article and had a little video with he, and I believe it was Amy Helm that was in the video with him, and then underneath it, it said he's retired from touring, but he is working on new music, or
I've heard
she
he's
said
working.
he was working on new music.
I believe he's working on new music. When I interviewed Tony Leone, he talked about the fact that Amy's son is in, um, is that right? I think it's Amy's son that's in the band playing drums now, well, along with him.
Okay.
And so that's Levon's grandson.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he was really thrilled about that. And I've heard that Donald is working on music with Levon's grandson, his step grandson.
So there may be new music. There just won't be any more tours from the sound of it.
Yeah. And I guess I'm okay with that. I
Yeah,
mean,
at some point, you got to give up the road. You
well,
know.
and I've been telling people for a few years, if you really like a musical artist that was around in the 1960s or 70s, you should really go and see them. You should
Hmm.
really go and see them. Even if they're not very good anymore, you should
Hmm.
still go and see them because things do fall apart. Stephen Stills went deaf,
Yeah,
people don't have their voices anymore. Paul Rogers
and
has stopped.
and David Crosby went dead.
Yeah, he did.
You know.
He took a nap and never came back.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
But he was planning on going out on tour again at that
Oh
point
yeah, he was never going to stop until uh,
until he got stopped.
as Donald Fagen called the bright white nightgown came
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. So anyway, I wanted to close the set with some Steely Dan, and that's what we did. Um, so overall, I mean, you checked out all this stuff. Is there anything that stands out for you on that people should go back and listen to again in our big list?
Oh,
That
all
Robert
of
the
it.
Plant. Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
I,
this
I
is a
mean,
good set. This is a really solid set, and the
yeah,
second set is
the
trippy.
whole thing is really good. I think it's well worth listening to the whole thing again. I'm always going to say listen to Zappa multiple times, just because it's Zappa. I would say I listen to Doyle Bramwell again. That song is just
With
killer.
with where he built it around James Gatson. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Really cool.
You know, but yeah, I would just say, you know, you got a week. Listen to this set like three, 4 times.
Yeah,
At
you do.
least.
You do have a
You
week.
know.
We'll be back at you. I'm working on interviews. I would love to do another interview. It's just getting things scheduled. Um, Everybody's like, yeah, we're interested, but not right now. So it's like, yeah, okay, okay, all right. I don't want to be
Yeah.
pushy because I'm, as I said, I'm dust in the wind. But anyway, we're going to continue on with a second set consisting of two album sides, one from the 1970s and one from the 1960s, early 70s, early 60s. The first one is the Firesign Theater. And I am a big fan. I was a big fan coming up of the Firesign Theater. I'd never heard anything like it. And we've talked about this before, but
Hmm.
um, uh, Rolling Stone Record Guide refers to this album, which is called Don't Crush That Dwarf, Hand Me the Pliers, from
Hmm.
1970, as the greatest comedy album of all time. And they've been referred to as the Beatles of comedy. And as I always like to say, I think it's more like the Pink Floyd of comedy, because at that time, comedy
Yeah.
albums were like, they were send-ups. It was like, you think of the old radio shows, the old comedy radio shows where they would have sound effects and stuff like that, and they would act out things, that would be on the radio. It wasn't just like monologues and like that. This is like taking this to a psychedelic extreme, wouldn't you say?
Hmm. Yep.
And I
Yep.
loved that. And they were very, very influential. I believe that the National Lampoon Radio Hour was very influenced by them. I believe that actually later
Hmm.
on, Cheech and Chong did an album called Sleeping Beauty that was very, very influenced by them.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
and I think that they were a huge influence. They started off, they're referred to as a surreal comedy group. They started off on KPFK in Los Angeles with a radio show called Radio Free Oz. And
Hmm.
they were on Columbia Records from 1967 to 1976. And their first album was called Waiting for the Electrician or Someone Like Him. We've played that a lot especially when we
Hmm.
were on radio, we played a lot of that. The guys that we're talking about are Peter Bergman, Philip Proctor, Phil Austin, and David Ossman. All very funny, not afraid to be intelligent or obscure, which I really
Yes.
love. Um, and like I say, the Beatles of comedy. This is their third LP. It came out in July of 1970, and it, there's some really great stuff on here. The pep rally. Um,
Rah, rah, rah.
that's right. That's the spirit we have here at More Science High. And
Yeah.
there's lots of great stuff. And just sort of they sort of touched on the ennui that we were experiencing flipping channels on a TV, which is even
Hmm.
worse now because now the flipping channels on a TV has become scrolling,
Yes.
endless meaningless scrolling, right?
Yes.
And
Hmm.
that's our remote control now. Um,
Hmm.
and so they were sort of harbingers of things to come, I think.
Hmm.
After that,
Absolutely.
we're going to hear some jazz music. Do you not like the jazz music? Uh, uh, Charles Mingus from an album called Charles Mingus Presents Charles Mingus, which is my favorite Charles Mingus album. Um, it's a very unusual album. For one thing, he's sitting at a piano on the cover of it, and there is no piano on the entire record. Um, it's a quartet record. Charles Mingus presents Charles Mingus. It was recorded on Candid Records, and I'll get to that in a second. Candid Records. He was still on Columbia Records, but this was on Candid, and there was a reason for that. It was recorded in October of 1960 and released
Hmm.
in January of 1961. Um, and he was very influenced at that time, as many other people were, by the Ornette Coleman Quartet, which was a group with horns but no harmonic instrument, no piano, no guitar. They were just
Hmm.
two horns, bass, and drums, which is what this is. Um, Charles Mingus on the acoustic bass and the talking and shouting. Danny Richmond, one of the great underrated jazz drummers, and those guys really had it going on. If you listen very closely to the bass and drums on these two songs that we're going to play Folk Forms Part One and Fables of Faubus. They are really, really, they can do anything together. They were like one mind,
Hmm.
Danny Richmond and Charles Mingus. Ted Curson
Yep.
on the trumpet, and the legendary Eric Dolphy on the saxophone, the bass clarinet, and the flute. Um, this this album came out on Candid. First off, Charles Mingus on this album, between songs, speaks to an imaginary audience because he wanted the band to think of it as more of a club gig so they would be more relaxed. Because sometimes when the red light came on, like everybody tensed up and tried to be real
Hmm.
serious and play real serious stuff, and it would not be as good as Mingus wanted it to be. So he just
Right.
talked to an imaginary audience. There's a song on the second side called All the Things You'd Be by Now if Sigmund Freud's wife was your mother. And then he produces it and he goes, which means nothing. And but Mingus had put a song on his album, last Columbia album, which I think was out in 59, called Mingus Aum. Um,
Hmm.
there was a song on there called Fables of Faubus.
Of Faubus. Yeah.
Yeah. And he had words to it, and he wanted to sing the words to it. And Columbia said, nah, these are controversial. We're not going to do this. So he went to a smaller label, Candid, which was run by a jazz critic, Nat Hentoff, I believe. And that could be off on that, could be wrong. Um,
Hmm.
but that song was a direct protest against Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus, who sent the National Guard to prevent racial integration in a Little Rock high school in
Right.
1957. And he was really, I mean, it's just scathing. He really goes after a whole bunch of politicians, including presidents. Um,
Hmm.
and uh, and he and Danny Richmond go back and forth. calling them Nazis and stuff like that. And
Yep.
Colombia was not into that. They didn't want that kind of attention. But Canada didn't mind.
Right.
But that's what's interesting about that and the unbelievably cool playing. The playing on this album
Oh
is
yeah.
incredible. This just a really tight four-piece band, and just the way that Mingus arranged things, where suddenly two of the players would just stop. They would just stop,
Right.
and the other two would continue playing, and or break it down. There are parts where and then he would shout, oh yeah, no, and stuff like that, and they just
Right.
all of it. It's just so magical, and I'm glad we get to play it for you. So in the second part of this playlist, we're going to have side one of the Firesign Theater. Don't Crush That Dwarf, Hand Me the Pliers, and then side one of Charles Mingus Presents Charles Mingus. And Dave,
Both classics.
I want to thank you so much for making the
Oh yeah.
time this week to do this. Once again, we are brought to you by Premier Chiropractic, 7113 West Jefferson Boulevard in Fort Wayne, Indiana, of an affordable walk-in clinic run by Dr. John McDonald, who does great work on me, and I'm sure that he will do great work for you, make you feel a lot better. He's the best there is, Dr. John. So anyway, thank you very much, Dave. Hopefully we can do this again next week. I know I'm trying to get an interview together for next week, but regardless, we're going to do this again. I really enjoy doing this with you. And,
Absolutely. I enjoyed it too. So
and I appreciate your time. It's always great to discuss music with you and anything else.
absolutely.
So thank you very much, bud.
All
En-
right. No, thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the playlist, and we'll talk to you soon.
Burnt toast!